Hello and welcome to another excelattheoffice.com video. My name's Adrian and I hope you'll find this one really valuable because what I'm going to do is simplify all my project management experience into 3 simple steps onto how to manage a project. Those steps are start, do and stop. Because anywhere you look online, it seems, PRINCE2 or Agile or anything like that, managing a project appears very complex. So if you're coming new to it, some people make it up as they go along and they kind of think, oh, well, maybe at this point I might need to write down what I'm going to do, i.e. a project plan, or at this point I might need to tell people what I'm going to do, such as a communications plan. In this, I outline those steps very simply. It's mostly aligned to PRINCE2, but obviously it's a far more simplified version, and I hope it'll help you whether you're officially the project manager or you have assumed the role because you've been lumbered with having to do something, or even in your own personal life, like you need to, you're doing an extension on your house and you want to use these tools. So this is just a quick 10-minute overview. So first up, I'll explain a bit about project management and define it, and then I'll get into the steps. So whether or not you're looking at PRINCE2 or Agile, popular methodologies of managing projects, they are rather complex. I myself, in my project management career, have achieved PRINCE2 Practitioner level certification. I got 90% or more on my exam. I can't remember exactly, but it's around that point. Certified Agile. I mean, they're much of a muchness, but Agile is often used for software development because it's got that kind of focus on developing things iteratively, whereas PRINCE2 is more about defining those products clearly from the outset, holding people accountable, and if you like that kind of structure, you might prefer the PRINCE2 method. But of course there's a lot of overlap, and I've covered the PRINCE2 is all about those products, focus on the products, and it runs by themes and principles you might read online. If you look at something like there's a PRINCE2 Wikipedia section, or a PRINCE2 wiki, specific wiki, which covers all that if you look for it online. But most people just want to know how to organize stuff, so this video is for you if that sounds like you. And I'll cover the steps again. Those are start, do and stop, so you can't get simpler than a 3-step process. So what I'm going to do is define what a project is, the important bits, and simplify PRINCE2 for you. So what is a project exactly? So I've come up with this definition to emphasize the important bits. So it's temporary work to deliver products for the business in order to achieve defined goals. So in plain English, that means I want to achieve something in my business. Say, for example, I want to publish a new app on the App Store, a new engaging game that sucks people in, and I can get money off them as they want to go through all the pointless levels and try and buy stuff along the way, all this intangible nonsense that people like to buy. Like, can you tell my cynicism? Anyway, I digress. So I want to create a new app for my business. That is the product. My defined goal is to increase the revenue through my applications, and of course once that app's created, it's only temporary. My project team will disband and develop me something else. So the temporary aspect's important. Creating products, i.e. things that didn't exist before that now exist for the business, and the defining the goals is important. Why you're doing something, defining that at the outset. And a golden rule, if you were to remember one rule about project management, again, I'm not covering all the rules or the principles, but don't spend longer managing something than doing it. So for example, with that app, that's going to be quite involved, so it might be worthy of quite detailed documentation, because it's going to take 6 to 12 months to deliver. But if one of your tasks is going to be a day's work, for example, obviously you're not going to spend several days creating project plans, risk registers and all that for it. So keep it proportionate to the actual time managing a project. So just as an overview of those start, do and stop. So at the start, obviously, you want to identify, is it worth doing? Should I bother doing this? And we'll come on to in a minute. That's basically your business case, the case for doing something for the business, weighing up the cost versus the benefit. Of course, you need to be a bit more specific than that, exactly, by saying, well, what is it that you're going to achieve? What products are you going to deliver, and how are you going to deliver them? I.e., who is going to do it, by when, with what resources, and so on. Then you're going to do the stuff, and occasionally you'll need to report to people how things are going. There'll be risks and issues to fix. You'll need to manage your stakeholders along the way to keep everyone on board, and demonstrate what you've done. If it's a more formal or long-term or bigger project, you'll need some kind of audit trail. And then finally, the thing that most people forget and just or it fizzes out, or the project team isn't a temporary endeavour. They stick around, and there's been scope creep, and now you've got a new permanent team working on something because they've not planned out their exit strategy. So making sure that you know when to stop things, i.e. when you've delivered the products and the business is happy with them, you can now hand that over to the business, get a decision on that, and also later on review how successful the project was. So that's the basics overview. So now I'll do that in a slightly more detail, but this is, again, still very high level. I'm going to present to you a banquet of information from which you can fill up your plate of the various elements and go and explore in more detail elsewhere. Or if you want to put in the comments if you'd like me to create a template project plan for you together and such like that, then by all means I'll do so. Let me know in the comments. But this is the steps as I lay out that start, do and stop. So I've broken it down into clear steps in a bit more detail. So that's mentioned the defining the objectives and outcomes. Before you do anything, find out, is it worth doing? You'll need to get a team in place. I'll cover that. So for example, that team will cover you as the project manager, organising everyone and everything. There'll be a senior user under PRINCE2, which is basically you want someone that's representing the interests of the business that's going to use the products that are created by the other party, which is the senior supplier. So that's the person that's responsible for delivering and implementing and completing those products. And then also, and you need a project executive. So that's a senior person from the business, or it could be from anywhere really, but a senior person that makes the decisions on where things are headed based on your advice as a project manager. So those are the 4 key roles you need as a minimum: project exec, senior user, senior supplier, and of course you as the project manager. Everything else is optional. At the start, you'll need to consider your stakeholders and the engagement of those stakeholders. Some people will have more or less interest in the project, or more or less influence on the project. There's stakeholder engagement plans out there that you can use to help you identify those people, but it's good to kind of think about how you're going to manage those along the way before you do so. And then compile a plan of what you're going to actually achieve. So with PRINCE2, that's very much a product-focused plan. So defining your products is very important. So if it's something tangible, like a house, for example, your broad products will be things like: first, product, gather your architectural drawings. Second, product, achieve planning permission. Third, product, secure all the builders and people like that are going to do the work. Fourth, lay the foundations. So when you break it down like that, it makes the project plan a lot easier to compile. Whether it's so that's a tangible product. For a less tangible product, it might be delivering training, for example. So you break that down into, first of all, designing the curriculum. Secondly, us creating all the learning resources linked to that curriculum, and so on and so forth. So the plan is the kind of central document that you'll work to. The challenges will be getting people to be specific, for you as a project manager, being specific as to what exactly they'll deliver and making sure everyone's on the same page. So product descriptions can be helpful for that. But also the accountability of assigning that ownership and keeping people onto a schedule that fits in with the rest of the plan. So that's when it comes to doing it. So making sure you're delivering against that schedule for those people that are going to deliver those products. And if there's any issues or risks emerging, so issues are things that are cropping up now, risks are things that might happen in the future, then you'll manage those as a project manager and get decisions from your project executive. Along the way, you'll be continuing to engage stakeholders. So I've mentioned that at each of the stages because it's so important. And you'll be holding project meetings with your core project executive, senior user and senior supplier as a minimum, but you may also be having meetings with other stakeholders to keep them engaged and informed. And then finally, obviously, the third step is to stop, and that means handing over your products to the business, making sure they can take those on. You'll be closing the project and reviewing the outcomes against what you set out in the business case. You'll be letting stakeholders know, and you'll 6-12 months down the line, it's important to, organisations really have the time for this, but just look back and go, well, all that work we did with all those people and all that millions of money, did we actually do what we set out to do? I mean, it seems quite silly when you lay it out like that people don't do that, but obviously it's important to learn the lessons, as the kind of buzz phrase goes, for next time, which ironically come in at the start of a project. So that's the outline steps. What I'll mention now is just structure for you some of the documentation that is important, and obviously keep the documentation proportionate to the scale of the project. But these are the sorts of documents that you'll compile at each of those stages in the start, do and stop. So I'm just simplifying PRINCE2. This isn't a detailed overview. This is just an overview if you want to know where to look in future and just want that high level helicopter view of how to manage stuff. So obviously at the start you might have a project brief that defines your roles and responsibilities, those roles I mentioned. The business case in the first place you'll need to set out. So that's a cost-benefit analysis. Here's all the costs of my project team, the time cost, how long it's going to take, and any financial costs to the business to develop this app, for example. But here's the benefits we're going to achieve after the app is developed in the year 1, year 2, year 3. So that's a cost-benefit analysis. We're going to apply these costs to get these benefits, and then you present that to the business to say, okay, based on that, do you want to do this thing? If you get go ahead, then that's where you lay that out more formally, and the business case includes all the kind of things, the goals you're going to achieve, and some of the in the project initiation documentation basically encapsulates all this green stuff to show how you're going to go about it. It's important to set the budget. So have some kind of financial report. Give people clarity on their roles and responsibilities, because what you'll find in project management is the people you get involved don't know anything about project management or their role. So if you get a senior supplier, they won't necessarily know what their purpose is, and they'll offer, or a senior user, or even the project executive, they'll kind of muddle along in their own way if you don't tell them precisely what their purpose is to do there. And of course, that's part of your communication strategy. I've called it comms strategy just because it fits nicer in big text in my page there, but you might call that a stakeholder management strategy, for example. And in that strategy, you'll have a kind of stakeholder priority matrix, which defines those that are less or more important stakeholders, and also against those that have less or more influence that can either scupper or accelerate your project success. And of course, as I've mentioned in a bit more detail earlier, the project plan is that kind of Gantt chart. I'm minded to create an Excel template for you if you want that. Obviously, this presentation will be on my blog at ito.blog/blog if you want to download it and use it to remind you of stuff. But let me know in the comments if you'd find a Gantt chart Excel template helpful. One tip on project plans is, if I were you, avoid Microsoft Project, because no one else, you can't share it with anyone. All the useful technical aspects of it in terms of linking up the timeline and things like that, if you try and share it with someone, they can't view that, and when you export it as a PDF, no one can understand it anyway. So create something simple, nice in Excel, because obviously the important stuff in a project is getting the stuff done, not how nicely you present everything. So that's something to consider. And the project initiation documentation wraps everything up. There are some other things, like in your project plan, if it's a massive project like the app development, you might break down not just products, but you might have things called product descriptions, which is describing exactly the tangible things that will be developed as part of that product, so that the owner of the responsible person that's going to deliver that product knows exactly what they're going to deliver, and they've signed up to it, and everyone's on the same page. But that's an optional extra. Again, I'm kind of summarising PRINCE2 here. I'm not going into all the ins and outs and details of the technical speak. So when you're doing the project, so the start and stop are important points that people often skip because they jump straight to doing. But while you're doing, you've got that project plan, so all you need to do is make sure it's delivered against. Naturally, obviously, no good plan stays the same when it goes live. You'll have to make tweaks here and there and try and make sure everything else is adjusted in accordance with that, because if you, say for example, haven't got the planning permission in the house analogy, then of course you can't yet start the work from the builders to lay the foundations yet. So you might need to postpone that if you're getting delays with the council. But whoever suffered delays with the council were completely prompt and efficient. I doubt that would ever happen. But if you're worried that that might happen, then you might put that as a risk on your risk register. So the risks register is quite a useful thing. You might have also an issues register. So it's easier just to combine them into the one, really, because what you're basically doing by logging them onto a register is prioritizing them and escalating them for the project exec and the project board, which is the meeting where the exec, user, supplier and you as the project manager meet to decide what to do about things like risks and issues. The thing you will present to that board in terms of how things are going with your stakeholders, with your risks, with your plan, how much is being spent against the budget, and so on, is called a project highlight report. So basically that's an executive summary, a quick, ideally one-page briefing, and again, if you want me to create a template that looks nice for you, mention in the comments and I'll get to work on that and demo it and put it on my excel@theoffice.com website. Let me know. But ultimately that's a one-page exec summary of how things are going generally, touching on all the other aspects of your project. Now, assuming all goes well, you will at some point stop the project. Or you might stop the project because things aren't going well, everything's over cost, over budget, and you actually need to recommend to the project exec, hang on, we got no money, things aren't being delivered on time, we're best off just stop throwing good money after bad, and stop this project. Of course, most people in the world act on ego, and public sector is not renowned for stopping projects when they go bad, but so that might rarely happen. But if you're brave enough, you can recommend it as a project manager, which I guess would be appreciated by your business if they want to stop throwing that good money after bad. But let's assume it goes well, or either way, what you'll do is hand over the product or products to the business so that they can keep them and maintain them. So for example, if there's in the app analogy, you'll need to make sure that there's a schedule for your IT department to implement any changes or updates that need releasing once the app is live, or any improvements that they want to implement to it. So you've got some kind of ability for the business to keep that plate spinning once you've set it up on its nice stick and got it started for them. The project closure report is an important document that basically appraises the whole project, what's gone well, what didn't go well in the project, because those are what's called lessons learned, and you will use those lessons learned at the start of your next project about your organization, about the project methodology generally, or so on and so forth, because that will inform your risks for the future. So for example, using your app development lessons learned, that will be handy for when your business starts the next project on developing an app and wants to go, oh, what did we learn the last time we did this, rather than have to relearn everything because there's a different project manager and different people involved that just think about starting from scratch again and haven't got this sort of simple guidance to guide them. But anyway, that's a detail within the project closure report. You'll identify whether or not you achieved the benefits that were outlined in the business case, and did you do them to budget. So reviewing the performance of the project, and you'll obviously let people know that the project is closed or imminently closing through your, again, comms plan and strategy. So the difference between comms strategy is generally how you're going to manage things. A comms plan is the tangible list of things you're going to do. And what often people forget to do is later on do something called a post-implementation review, which again, all of these you can find more information about online. So that's the steps, 3 simple steps to managing a project. That's what you're doing in plain English, and these are the documents that you'll refer to along the way. So that's a kind of very nutshell simplification of PRINCE2, trying to convey as well some of my learning and experience from my own project management career experience, while also giving you some signposting on how you can get more information elsewhere. I'll put that project management wiki thing in the description below, and of course I'll put this presentation along with a blog in due course at my excelattheoffice.com blog, where you'll also find other helpful templates and tools and guidance, such as my Stranger Things PowerPoint template, or Ancient Apocalypse if you like that one. I've done one on how to create buttons in PowerPoint, changing slide orientation, plus there's a heap of stuff on my YouTube channel. I hope you found that helpful. Just sharing my kind of guidance there. I hope it helps make sense of project management for you. And until next time, take care.